I am from India, I am from Pakistan, obviously, and I might not know too much about both places, you feel me? But I know, like, the Bible is based in Israel, you feel me?
Crime alert today as police now searching for the shooter who gunned down a man in Hallandale Beach, and we've learned that victim was a local rapper. Local 10's Rashlo has the latest now from that scene.
We saw Hallandale Beach police out here throughout the day investigating, trying to solve this case where a young man, 25 years old, had his life taken. According to witnesses, he was a rapper. We did look into his history. He has been arrested in the past. But police say this is very much an ongoing investigation. Hallandale Beach police still on the scene Friday morning, searching for clues, going door to door, trying to solve a murder. Bullets flying Thursday night, and this guy says bullets hit his house. So last night, anoche, you hear, right? Bullet holes. You live here. Boom, boom, boom. See? He says, I took off and I hid in the bathroom because I heard way too many shots fired. It all happened on the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue. 25-year-old Brandon Wamley was transported to a nearby hospital. He passed away. A lot of bullets, mucho.
Mucho balazo, mucho, se escuchó mucho rafagazo.
Witnesses say the victim is a rapper known as Wam SpinThaBin. We also checked, and it appears he does have a criminal history in Broward County with charges of cannabis possession, stalking, writing a threat to kill. Hallandale Beach police say this was an isolated incident and that the victim and suspect were acquainted, but they also say the case remains very active and the investigation continues. In the meantime, neighbors reacting to what they saw Thursday evening.
You could say that it is scary because you're seeing police in the middle of the night. You're wondering what's going on, and you can wonder what's going on in the neighborhood.
So as police continue their investigation, they want to stress they believe this was an isolated incident, that the victim actually knew the shooter in this case.
At just 25, South Florida rapper Wam SpinThaBin, born Brandon Wamley, projected the image of a rising star, albums, collaborations, and a voice-carving space in the rap scene. But behind the spotlight was a life marked by personal battles, past arrests, and a struggle to distance himself from street tensions. On August 28, 2025, the two worlds collided violently in Hallandale Beach. Gunfire echoed across Northwest 6th Avenue, leaving Wam fatally wounded. Authorities say he knew his killer. A confrontation turned deadly. The public saw ambition and fame, but investigators uncovered a far different reality, one that ended with a young artist's life cut short under flashing sirens. South Florida's rap scene had no shortage of bold voices, but Wam SpinThaBin, born Brandon Wamley, carved his own lane. With a smooth but cutting delivery, he gained early recognition through his ties to Kodak Black's Sniper Gang, dropping tracks that quickly circulated online. His debut album Life Before Fame in 2021, followed by Before I Self-Destruct in 2022, established him as more than a regional act. Collaborations like 444 drew national praise, even earning a feature in Pitchfork as a must-hear rap release. To his fans, he was the embodiment of hustle, talented, relentless, and destined for greater stages. Beyond music, Wam cultivated a lifestyle familiar to many young artists. Flashy cars, camaraderie with fellow rappers, and a steady presence on social media. He celebrated loyalty, family ties, and the grind that fueled his lyrics. To those watching, he was admired not just for his music, but for his resilience in overcoming setbacks and pushing forward despite adversity. Yet beneath the image of a rapper on the rise, cracks began to surface. Wam had endured personal losses, including the death of his cousin and collaborator WizDaWizard, a tragedy that left visible scars. He also admitted to battling substance abuse, surviving an overdose before pursuing sobriety. Jail records revealed encounters with law enforcement, including cannabis possession and even threats of violence. These details painted a more complicated portrait, an artist straddling two worlds, balancing ambition with dangerous ties and unresolved conflicts. What his fans saw was momentum and promise. What lingered in the shadows were red flags, signs of pressure, unresolved disputes, and risks that, in hindsight, foreshadowed the violence that would eventually claim his life. The momentum of Wam SpinThaBin's career suggested bigger stages and brighter lights ahead, but away from the studio and spotlight, tension simmered. Friends and collaborators noticed the weight of grief, old disputes, and the stress of keeping one foot in music while the other remained entangled in street life. Behind closed doors, those pressures were building toward a breaking point. Then came the night that changed everything. A routine evening in Hallandale Beach was pierced by gunfire, sending neighbors scrambling for safety. Police raced to the scene after a ShotSpotter alert, finding a man critically wounded. Witnesses would later say the victim wasn't targeted at random. He knew the person who pulled the trigger. The news spread quickly across social media, rippling through South Florida's music community. Fans who had celebrated his rise now confronted an unthinkable reality: the sudden and violent downfall of an artist who seemed destined for more. The details that surfaced would leave both investigators and supporters asking the same haunting question: why? What do you think this case reveals about the fine line between fame and danger? Do you believe Wam SpinThaBin's past played a role in his tragic end? Or was this something no one could have predicted? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective. You're watching Global Crime Venue, where viral fame hides chilling secrets. From TikTok dancers and Instagram couples to rising Facebook personalities, we reveal the dark side of the spotlight. When the perfect posts turn into tragedies, we break down exactly how it all unraveled. These aren't just online stories. They're real cases with real victims. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new case breakdown. In our next episode, we'll dive into another shocking story of love, control, and a hidden danger that no one saw coming. Here's the untold side of what really happened. On the evening of August 28, 2025, law enforcement in Hallandale Beach, Florida, received an automated notification from the city's ShotSpotter gunfire detection system. The system had registered multiple shots fired in the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue, a residential area with modest homes and narrow streets. Officers were dispatched immediately to the location, arriving within minutes of the alert. Upon arrival, they located a male victim lying on the ground suffering from several gunshot wounds. The victim was later identified as 25-year-old Brandon Wamley, known publicly as the South Florida rapper Wam SpinThaBin. Paramedics on the scene administered emergency aid before transporting him to a nearby hospital. Despite those efforts, medical staff confirmed he died from his injuries shortly after arrival. Police established a perimeter around the area to preserve the crime scene and began canvassing the neighborhood for witnesses. Residents reported hearing rapid gunfire shortly before officers arrived. Some described taking cover inside their homes as the shots echoed through the street. No bystanders were reported injured, and no other victims were located in the immediate vicinity. Preliminary findings from the investigation suggested that this was not a random act of violence. Detectives confirmed that the victim was acquainted with the shooter, and the confrontation between the two escalated into gunfire. Authorities did not disclose the exact nature of the dispute, but noted it appeared to be personal rather than a targeted attack by strangers. As part of standard investigative procedure, crime scene technicians documented shell casings and collected ballistic evidence. Surveillance cameras from surrounding homes and businesses were reviewed for possible footage of the incident. Detectives also conducted door-to-door inquiries, requesting information from anyone who may have witnessed the altercation or seen an individual fleeing the area. In addition to forensic evidence, investigators began examining the victim's recent activities and associations. Detectives looked into Wamley's known acquaintances, both in the music industry and within the community, to establish potential motives or prior conflicts. His past encounters with law enforcement were also reviewed to determine whether prior disputes could be connected to the shooting. Authorities released a public statement urging anyone with information to come forward. The Hallandale Beach Police Department requested tips through both phone lines and anonymous reporting systems, emphasizing that community cooperation would be essential in identifying the suspect and securing an arrest. The incident quickly became a matter of public concern, not only because of the victim's notoriety as a rising rapper, but also due to the violent circumstances and the lack of an immediate arrest. Local news outlets covered the shooting extensively, providing updates on the police investigation and broadcasting appeals for information. When news of the shooting of South Florida rapper Wam SpinThaBin, real name Brandon Wamley, spread, the immediate impact was felt first in the neighborhood where the incident occurred. Residents in Hallandale Beach described the night of August 28, 2025, as suddenly disrupted by the sound of rapid gunfire. Several witnesses reported ducking for cover or remaining indoors as the shots rang out. Law enforcement later confirmed that a shot spotter alert, designed to detect gunfire in real time, guided officers directly to the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue. According to residents interviewed afterward, the speed of police response emphasized how serious the situation had become. Neighbors expressed concern about violence in the area. While Hallandale Beach is not categorized among the most crime-heavy parts of Broward County, residents pointed out that isolated shootings still create an atmosphere of unease. One witness stated that they initially thought the sounds were fireworks until they realized multiple shots were fired in rapid succession. The shooting occurred in a residential block, which intensified the feeling that violence had directly reached local homes and families. On social media, the response expanded beyond the neighborhood. Within hours, posts across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook began circulating, confirming that the victim was Wam SpinThaBin. His followers reacted with disbelief, sharing clips of his music and older interviews. Several users highlighted his lyrics that referenced struggle, loyalty, and survival, noting how those themes now appeared in sharp contrast to his sudden death. The South Florida rap community responded with tributes and public comments. Artists affiliated with Wam posted memorials, while others raised concerns about the recurring pattern of young musicians losing their lives to gun violence before their careers could reach full potential. Some posts focused on the challenges of separating rising rap careers from unresolved disputes or dangerous environments. Law enforcement also turned to the community for assistance. The Hallandale Beach Police Department conducted door-to-door inquiries in search of eyewitness accounts and potential surveillance footage. Authorities stated publicly that Wam knew his assailant and urged anyone with information about the confrontation to step forward. Police emphasized that community cooperation could be the critical factor in moving the case forward. Local news outlets amplified the request for cooperation by broadcasting interviews with residents and showing the taped-off crime scene. Reports underlined the importance of gathering every available detail, from physical evidence such as shell casings to digital records that might provide leads on the suspect's movements. The wider online discussion expanded into forums and comment sections. Some users pointed to the risks faced by artists navigating both music careers and street ties. Others focused on the impact on the local community, stressing that high-profile cases bring added attention but leave residents to live with the consequences of ongoing violence. On the evening of August 28, 2025, Hallandale Beach authorities received a notification through the ShotSpotter system, which records the sound of gunfire and relays alerts to law enforcement. The system indicated multiple shots fired in the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue, a residential area with both single-family homes and apartment buildings. Units from the Hallandale Beach Police Department were dispatched immediately. Upon arrival, officers established a perimeter and located an adult male suffering from gunshot wounds. Emergency medical services transported him to a nearby hospital where trauma staff attempted life-saving measures, but his injuries proved fatal. Officers then transitioned the location into an active crime scene. Forensic units documented the area in detail. Shell casings were collected and tagged, bullet trajectories were measured, and potential points of entry and exit for the suspect were identified. Investigators canvassed homes within the immediate vicinity. Several residents reported hearing a burst of rapid gunfire, with one witness stating they took cover after the first shots. Another reported seeing an unidentified figure moving quickly away from the scene, though the description lacked clarity. Detectives determined early that the incident was not random. Evidence suggested the victim and the shooter were acquainted, and that a confrontation preceded the violence. Investigators began reviewing surveillance footage from nearby properties, cross-referencing video timestamps with witness accounts to establish a timeline. Potential escape routes were mapped and examined for additional clues. Evidence technicians expanded their search beyond the visible crime scene. Items potentially carrying fingerprints or DNA were collected and sent for laboratory testing. Officers also conducted door-to-door checks for private security cameras or eyewitness observations that might confirm the suspect's movements. In parallel, investigators examined the victim's recent activities and contacts. Phone records, social interactions, and meeting locations from the days leading up to the shooting were analyzed. Detectives interviewed individuals who had direct contact with him, focusing on whether disagreements or ongoing disputes might have escalated. While his past legal issues were noted, police did not release details on whether these directly connected to the case. Authorities emphasized that their working theory involved a targeted act resulting from a dispute, rather than an indiscriminate shooting. This shaped the direction of their investigation. Public statements were released through local media, encouraging residents to provide video footage or information that could strengthen the case. As of the latest updates, no arrests had been announced. The suspect remained unidentified, though law enforcement maintained that the individual was known to the victim. Detectives continued to compile evidence, corroborate testimonies, and reconstruct the series of events from the initial altercation to the suspect's escape. When news of the shooting in Hallandale Beach reached the surrounding neighborhood, the first responses came from those who lived on Northwest 6th Avenue. Residents described hearing multiple gunshots in quick succession, followed by silence before police sirens filled the area. Several neighbors later told reporters that they immediately hid or locked themselves inside their homes, concerned that the gunfire might continue. The shot spotter system confirmed the presence of multiple rounds, which aligned with residents' statements. Although the neighborhood had experienced crime in the past, the sudden escalation that night left people unsettled about the level of violence so close to their homes. Law enforcement worked methodically in the immediate aftermath. Officers closed off the area, searched for shell casings, and began speaking with anyone who might have witnessed the shooting. Detectives went door to door, asking for security camera footage or any information that could help identify the shooter. Authorities emphasized that cooperation from residents would be vital in the investigation. They disclosed that the suspect and the victim were believed to know each other, but no names or further details were released. The absence of specific information left community members questioning the nature of the conflict that led to the violence. The response extended quickly to social media platforms. News of the incident was picked up by blogs, rap-focused outlets, and larger local news stations, all of which circulated the story rapidly. Supporters of Wam SpinThaBin began posting his music, interview clips, and images, using online platforms as a digital memorial. Fans shared comments expressing disbelief at his sudden death, and some urged others to pay closer attention to the risks faced by young artists. The widespread online discussion kept the story trending, ensuring it reached audiences far outside of South Florida. Community leaders also weighed in. Figures in local music circles acknowledged the impact of the shooting on aspiring rappers in the region. Public conversations emphasized safety, the environment young artists often come from, and the challenges of balancing public careers with private conflicts. Several independent journalists drew comparisons between this case and other recent violent deaths involving emerging rappers, framing it as part of a recurring pattern that the South Florida music industry has struggled to address. At the local level, residents continued to process the incident as police activity remained highly visible in the neighborhood. Patrol cars, investigators, and uniformed officers were present for days after the shooting as evidence collection and follow-up questioning continued. For some residents, the visible police presence was a reminder of the seriousness of the crime. For others, it was a sign that the case would not be quickly resolved without significant cooperation from the public. From the beginning of the investigation, authorities emphasized one critical detail. The shooter who ended Brandon Wamley's life was not a stranger. Detectives confirmed that the victim and suspect had a prior connection, shifting the focus away from random violence and toward a targeted conflict. This point narrowed the scope of the case, as investigators concentrated on Wamley's known associates, social network, and recent interactions. The absence of a public name or arrest leaves only the investigative framework to examine. Police believe the shooter was someone who had both direct access to Wamley and reason to confront him on the night of August 28, 2025. Such proximity indicates either a personal relationship, an ongoing dispute, or a professional association within his immediate environment. Investigators are piecing together who occupied those roles at the time of the incident. Witnesses reported hearing multiple shots in quick succession, which police interpret as an intentional act rather than a warning or accidental discharge. This evidence supports the conclusion that the shooter came prepared to escalate the confrontation. Detectives are using ballistic evidence and surveillance footage from the area to establish the shooter's movements before and after the incident. Beyond the technical evidence, the suspect's profile is being constructed through interviews. Authorities are speaking with individuals who interacted with Wamley in the days leading up to the shooting. This includes acquaintances from his neighborhood, collaborators in his professional circle, and personal contacts who may have knowledge of disputes or unresolved tensions. Each statement contributes to building a timeline that can reveal opportunity and motive. Investigators are also considering whether the confrontation was spontaneous or premeditated. If the suspect sought out Wamley deliberately, this indicates a planned attack. If the altercation developed suddenly, the background shifts toward personal grievances that escalated under pressure. Establishing this distinction is central to understanding the suspect's intent. The location of the shooting provides another clue. It occurred in a residential block rather than a performance venue or public setting. This suggests that the suspect was comfortable entering that environment, which further reinforces the idea of familiarity. Detectives continue to gather data from security systems in the surrounding area, aiming to confirm whether the suspect had been in the vicinity before. At this stage, the suspect remains unnamed, and no official charges have been filed. Law enforcement has urged community members to provide any information that could clarify the suspect's identity. The investigation relies on forensic analysis, electronic records, and local testimony to bridge the gap between speculation and confirmation. What is clear is that the shooter was not a random passerby. The individual was someone who knew the victim, had access, and acted with decisive intent. Until authorities release further details, the suspect's background remains under examination. Built from proximity, opportunity, and motive, the three elements that now define the direction of this case. The death of Wam SpinThaBin highlights a recurring pattern at the intersection of music and violence. His case demonstrates how young artists, despite professional achievements, remain exposed to risks that come from unresolved disputes and environments where gun violence is prevalent. This incident is not isolated. It reflects a larger issue affecting musicians in South Florida and across the United States. For communities, the shooting underscores how cultural pride and tragedy can exist side by side. Areas that produce promising talent also experience challenges related to crime and safety. The loss of an artist in these circumstances draws attention because it connects a story of success with an outcome shaped by systemic problems. Residents often celebrate their local artists while simultaneously confronting the dangers present in their neighborhoods. Law enforcement faces distinct challenges in such cases. When victims and suspects know each other, investigations can be more complicated. Witnesses may hesitate to come forward, and motives are often tied to personal disputes that are not easily traced. In Wam's case, police confirmed the victim and shooter were acquainted, which suggests the shooting developed from conflict rather than random targeting. This scenario reflects a broader difficulty. Crimes involving personal ties often rely on community cooperation, yet fear of retaliation can silence potential witnesses. The music industry also plays a role in shaping the environment where these risks emerge. Artists often gain recognition by presenting authenticity, but there is limited structure to help them separate professional growth from personal conflict. The pursuit of credibility can sometimes keep artists closely tied to high-risk situations. The gap between recognition and resources for safety creates conditions where violent outcomes remain possible. The case also raises questions about prevention. What mechanisms are in place to support young artists navigating sudden visibility? How can communities create pathways that emphasize stability alongside opportunity? These questions point to a recurring cycle. Individuals who achieve influence through music often remain vulnerable because the systems around them do not address the risks connected to their circumstances. From a broader perspective, Wam's death emphasizes the consequences of unresolved disputes within communities under pressure. The impact extends beyond one individual, resonating with fans, peers, and local residents who recognize both the potential loss and the environment that contributed to the outcome. The pattern of artists becoming victims of violence indicates that without changes in community support, industry involvement, and conflict resolution, similar cases will continue. And that concludes today's case. But remember, this is just one of countless stories the world has yet to uncover. Here on Global Crime Venue, our mission is to uncover the facts, honor the victims who can no longer speak, and make sure their stories are never erased. If what you heard today made you think, know this, more cases are on the way that will shock you, haunt you, and change the way you look at social media and the world around you. Be sure to subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. New investigations are released regularly. And trust me, you'll want to be here when the next story breaks. Before you leave, share your thoughts in the comments. What stood out to you most in this case? Your voice keeps these stories alive. Until we meet again, stay cautious, stay informed, and never forget, justice starts with truth. Global Crime Venue, uncovering the stories behind the screen.